Hey, everybody, this is Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is the Duluth Pack podcast, Leader of the Pack. Our special guest today, whew, does she have a big job? Holy cow, I don't ever want to have that much responsibility. This is Kelly McGrath. Kelly is the general manager and executive director of somewhere most of us listening to this have probably been, the Xcel Energy Center. So, Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Oh my gosh, I'm really excited because I have spent probably way more time than I ever should in the Xcel Energy Center, and this is going to be really exciting just to find about all what goes on behind the scenes and all the things that you manage. But before we get there, Kelly, let's deep dive way back in your life, and just tell us, where'd you grow up and where did you go to school and what were you like as a kid, and how in the heck did you make it to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the answer to all those. I know some of the basic questions. How I got where I am today is maybe a little harder. You can probably hear from the nasal tones of my voice. I'm from Minnesota, born and raised. I am a White Bear Lake native. Was raised there with, I have an older brother and older sister that are still in the area. My mom still lives in White Bear Lake. So we are a close-knit family, always was growing up. Had a dad that owned and managed his own business. So a small business owner, custom stainless steel. So as kids, we got to go to a lot of restaurants because my dad would want to go and, eat at the places that were doing business with him. And so we were able to go to a lot of different restaurants when I was a kid and learned a lot about running a small business because that's what was talked about at our dinner table. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she also always figured out a way to be working when we weren't home. I don't think I knew that as a kid. I don't think I quite understood that she was figuring out how to be around, but also balance her need to do some things outside of the home. She was very active in our church and actually went on to be the president of the National Council of Catholic Women. So I certainly had an example of women in leadership roles in my own home and have realized that more as I've aged, what a valuable lesson that was right from the start without knowing that it was a valuable lesson. So yeah, White Bear, great place to grow up. I think I was pretty normal, played a lot of sports, played outside till somebody yelled and said we had to come indoors. Kind of always the neighborhood joke was a gal that lived next door, when her mom yelled it was bath time, which how horrible, right? As a kid, Mrs. Schultz, I shouldn't say names, would just yell out the door, bath time, and the whole neighborhood knew that was our cue to start wrapping up our game and head on home. So it was that kind of neighborhood, all sorts of kids outside playing. We were blessed to have a cabin that we spent a lot of time with in the summers. So I would say whatever typical is anymore, a pretty typical average time in Minnesota as a kid. I went to school. I started my first 2 years at St. Cloud State. I was up there my freshman year. I lived in the dorms. And then my sophomore year, I studied abroad. I studied in France, in Toulouse, France, my sophomore year of college. I think that was a creative way to get my mom and dad to pay for a trip to Europe. I saw a lot of Europe that way, got the Eurail pass and did the whole 9 yards when I was there, but a great experience. Learned the language, which is certainly a skill you lose quickly when you don't use it. I don't have an opportunity, obviously, to speak French very often, other than when Jacques Lemire was our coach. I could have a little bit of sense of what he was saying once in a while, but not enough to converse. And then I finished my second 2 years and graduated from the University of St. Thomas. So I was back here in St. Paul for school. I have degrees in international studies and French, and I have a minor in economics.
And you've lost that French. That was one of your majors. But I guess if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah. And what I was going to do with all that is anybody's guess, right? Like, probably thought I'd end up working at 3M or some capacity, but that's just not the way that things went for me.
What would you say were your biggest lessons learned studying abroad?
I definitely learned a lot of independence. How I was, the arrangement and everyone is different. I had my own room when I was in France. There was only about, I think, a dozen of us that were on the program that went to France from St. Cloud State at that time. And not everyone was a student at St. Cloud. So I didn't know anyone in the group when I went over to Toulouse. So very much learned, you had to figure things out. I had to make friends. I made good friends with the group I was with, but then I also made a lot of friends with students that were also studying abroad. I think that's probably the biggest thing I learned was independence. I couldn't come home on the weekend, right? So when a lot of young people now, I think, go home a fair amount when they're away at school, they still are connected either via Facebook Live, or they're texting all the time with none of that existed when I was abroad. I would literally on Tuesdays at 2:30 in the afternoon, where I was in the dorm, there was a pay phone. I'm old. There was a pay phone in the lobby, and then all the students were going to use that pay phone to make calls. It was a very international student base in Toulouse, just by proximity of the geography of France. And so the lobby would be full, but I had an arrangement with my mom and dad. They would call every Tuesday at 2:30, which would be 6:30 Minnesota time. So all the students knew when the phone rang, it was for the American. So then I would go over and I'd answer the phone, and they would all listen because they'd practice their English by what they would hear me saying to my mom and dad. So I usually started the conversation, Tom, by saying, "Yep, I'm here in the lobby is full and everyone's listening to what we're saying." Well, then they'd all, look away or pretend they didn't hear what I had said. But that's how I communicated with my mom and dad, was once a week with a standard setup phone call. So I learned from I was 19 when I was in France, that I had to figure things out. And if I needed something done, I just learned how to do it. I didn't have the fallback of being able just to text my mom to do something for me. She wouldn't have done it either. Like,
she would have said, time to grow up a little bit.
Exactly. I think that would have been the answer to that one, thankfully.
Well, I bet you that was a huge growth period in your life, and to help you get to your career and what you're doing now. And now let's talk a little bit about that career, because, after school, where did you venture to, and what did you do, and how did that carry on to your next roles?
Yeah, my first job, when I was graduated from St. Thomas, I actually volunteered for a year with a youth ministry organization that's based in West St. Paul. So I traveled the country in a van with 12 other young adults, and we put retreats on throughout different dioceses. It's all throughout the country. We had certain areas that we went to. So I was a team leader, was asked to lead a team, which right away, I think I was 22 and you're telling all these kids what to do. It's like, what am I doing? Shouldn't we have an adult with us? But apparently I was the adult, along with a peer that was kind of leading the men's team. And I learned a lot that way, because I was setting up retreats in advance and dealing with all these parishes to get that done. We'd schedule our travel. So I think through that, I ended up working for the organization then for 3 years. And so I oversaw teams as they traveled on the road. And one cool thing that I was able to do during that time frame that probably really sparked my interest in large scale events was it was all through the Catholic Church. And the Pope, I don't know if the Pope still does this or not, in the youth ministry world, used to do what's called World Youth Day, and the Pope visits different cities. So he was in Denver when I worked for the organization, and I was asked to plan the trip to move 100 people from St. Paul out to Denver to serve as ministers during that time. So I was tasked with, how are we going to get there? What does the busing look like? Where are we going to house all these people on the road? Find a church that's about a 10-hour drive that they might be willing to house everybody, or let them sleep on a floor or something. It wasn't very glamorous. I got to fly out there, so that was a bonus. But I did all of those different elements, all the transportation, the housing, the food, the apparel, dividing everybody into sub teams. The training of it was part of that team, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I liked pulling all the different things together to make the whole, to have a big event come together. So I think that was like my first taste of, oh, that was cool. I like that. And then I had the opportunity. I was there for 3 years, and you don't make a lot of money when you're working in a nonprofit ministry setting. So I was at a point where I needed to make a better salary. So I had the opportunity to move into the group sales role at the Ordway Center for the Performing Arts, which is right next door to the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul.
So Kelly, how did the youth ministry and all the planning and, like you said, being the adult, even though you were 22 years old, set you up then for a sales role?
Isn't that funny? One, I think, to go back to your question about how were you raised, I come from a family of salespeople. You know, my dad is a small business owner. He was always selling. He always had to be selling. My sister's still in sales. She sells mortgage products. My brother's in a sales capacity in the steel business. I think it's just how we're all built. So you just kind of learn that nature. I'm naturally a curious person. I'm also naturally someone that likes people, and I like to get to know people. And I feel like that's helped me tremendously in sales, just asking questions, asking the right questions to get to their need and try to figure out how I might be able to help with that. So stumbled into it a little bit, but also saw it around me quite a bit.
So with the Ordway, that is all part of the whole envelope, correct, of the Xcel Energy Center?
They're a whole separate building. They
It
just
is.
happen right next door. They're a completely separate operation.
It is. Okay.
Yep.
So the Ordway, tell us all, what is the Ordway? And then in a group sales manager position, what were you responsible for and accountable for?
Yeah, the Ordway, it used to be called the Ordway Music Theater. Now it's the Ordway Center for Performing Arts, is our neighbor here in St. Paul. So they have Broadway shows. They do an educational series. The St. Paul Chamber Orchestra makes their home there. The Schubert Club used to when I was there, and occasionally the Minnesota Opera was there. I was really tasked with selling the Broadway shows that came through. So the major, at that time, your Showboat was one of the very first shows that we had. That's when Les Mis tours, Rent tours, all the different Broadway shows that will make a stop as a touring production at the Ordway. And my role was to find organizations, tour groups, school drama groups, any group of 12 or more that might want to buy tickets and come to an event. So it was a lot of prospecting, a lot of trade shows, a lot of networking, cold calls, just trying to find out who might be a group leader and try to get them to purchase tickets from us for shows. Now, like any product, a certain show comes and your phone rings. It's a little bit easier to sell. So really where we would be of harder work and really why we existed was shows that maybe needed a little more help, where you had some outbound work going to get people to come to a show.
How many seats are in the Ordway?
I think they're about 2,500. Gosh,
2,500?
it's been a long time since I've been there. Maybe
Sure.
2,000 seats at the Ordway.
So
Yeah.
when you would go to a trade show, what kind of trade shows would you go to sell group seating at a venue like that?
Yeah, there's industry trade shows. There used to be a big one in Sioux Falls every year, the Jackrabbit Tour and Travel Show, that all these people would come from Sioux Falls to learn about tours and things they could go on to the Twin Cities. So like the Science Museum would be there, the Minnesota Zoo would be there, all the different attractions. Minnesota Office of Tourism puts on different events within the industry. There's an organization that's an umbrella organization for the major employers in Minnesota that they can all belong to. And then all the attractions belong to that organization to try to get to employees. So like the 3Ms of the world, or the it used to be Honeywell. Is Honeywell still a company in Minnesota? All those different people were represented. So they have an employee base of, tens of thousands of people. And we would try to get them to purchase tickets or offer their tickets to their employees at the group discount rate and sell a lot of tickets that way. So you're just trying to make connections with different organizations.
Kelly, for our listeners, can you talk a little bit about cold calling. I'm old. I remember I'm a salesman. I remember, originally having to start cold calling, but can you explain your experience with, hey, I have to go dial for dollars now. That's what I've always called it.
It is, yeah. And I haven't, with my role changing through the years, had to do it as much anymore. And I used to always say, your phone is often the heaviest thing on your desk, right? Like it's hard for people to just do it. I probably did the most cold calling when I left the Ordway and I went to the Business Journal. I sold advertising there, and I was a commission salesperson, 100% commission. So whatever I sold, I got paid for. That was a scary transition to think, am I going to be able to do it? And of course, when you're in the hiring process, they're telling you, how everybody makes this amount, and it's not a problem. And I do remember when I was negotiating to take that job, saying, well, then you're willing to guarantee that for the first year, right? And they were like, well, no, that's not how it worked. And I said, well, wait a minute, you just told me that's what it's going to be. So I would love some sense of guarantee back that if I'm going to take the risk to sell 100% commission. So I think we met somewhere in the middle where I got a decent guaranteed base plus commission, and then moved off of that to full commission, which was scary, but it's also a motivator. The more you sell, the more you make. And I didn't love it. I had to do it, so I did it. I would say people who know they're good at it are really, really good at it, and they don't even think about it as cold calling, right? I think they just think of it as another way to make a connection. I do think, and you've probably experienced this as you've seen the change to text, email, all the different ways, social, that people have to communicate now with prospective clients. Nothing frustrates me more than when someone will say, well, I sent him an email. And I'm like, great. Did you call him? Like, did you pick up the phone? Well, no, but I'll email him again. And I'll remind people, I probably like you, Tom, I get so many emails on any given day. If you're trying to sell me something I don't even know I know or need, I'm not even going to open. I don't even read your email. Like, a lot of it gets directed to spam, or I clean it off in the morning. If it came to me between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., it's automated, right? Like, that's not somebody working on that overnight. You're hoping I wake up and see that first thing. Well, I get 20 of those. I clean my inbox, and I don't think I'm alone. So we have a woman that sells for the Wild now, who used to be the salesperson more for the group events here at the arena at the Xcel Energy Center. And her name is Karen Reisinger, and I've worked with Karen for 20 plus years. Coming out of COVID, she came back and sold more for the Wild. So she moved from being the arena group salesperson to now selling more of all the Wild products and still supporting the arena. And the sales manager over there loves it because Karen calls people. Karen's on the phone all the time. She still texts, she's still doing the chat, she's still doing email, but she's constantly on the phone, and she's crushing her numbers. And so the sales manager is like, hey, everybody, look what happens when you pick up the phone and you actually have a conversation with someone. So I do think it's still a valuable tool in this age of 1,000 other ways to reach people. It's still a valuable. AI can't do everything. That's the other thing I just got told the other day, is somebody said they use Chat GPT and AI to write all their sales emails. And I said, well, that's a helpful tool. I hope you proof them before you send it out. And the face gave me a little flicker in the eyes. When you see that, like, proof them. Like, why would I do that? And I was like, just because you're still a person trying to personalize what you're selling. So
let me ask you a question, because you're talking about talking to people versus, following up with email or confirming with email or text or whatever. Do you agree with this statement that when you're in a sales role and or a management role, that first and foremost, you're in the relationship business?
100%. I agree with that.
Do you agree that then that picking up the phone and talking to somebody, or today maybe Skyping or Zooming and all that stuff like so many do, that it's so much more of a important or powerful way to build relationships versus a stale email?
Yeah, I do think I fully agree with you, Tom. I think relationships are the key to business, right? To the key to business success. And one thing I'm trying to do in my role as the general manager, because I'm new to the role, um, I get out of I get out of my office a lot. Like I walk the floor on event nights. I just had a meeting with our director of operations and then our senior director of operations. I had two back-to-backs today, and it was spent in their space. Like I made sure I went to where Matt sits because I need to know his world down there, right? And it's very different to come and sit with me versus me to sit with him and learn, like, who are his people? Where do they sit? What does their space look like? I want everybody to be comfortable, and I want to meet face to face if I can. And then my second meeting with our senior operations person, Mark, we walk the building together because that's his baby. His job is to make sure our building is functional and operational. And so what better way to see what he's doing than for us to walk the building together? And that's time together, right? So that's relationship, a simple thing to just kind of build that relationship. I want to do it because it's how I'm learning, but I'm also trying to be intentional that I do want to see what you guys do every day because it's super important. Matt, make sure the building is clean, and that when you come here to an event, when you come to see a Wild game or a concert, your chair works, the building's clean, the floor is clean, the concession stands are ready to go. Super, super vital to our success as an organization. So I feel those relationships are really important. That they know they're supported in what they do, because sometimes the less glamorous roles don't get as much as the grease, but they're super, super vital to our organization, which does for me come back to relationships. And you know that from the business you run, your people are key. We have a very large part-time staff on a game day, right? Or an event day. You think your ticket taker, your box office, your usher, all the people under our guest experience team. I'm trying to let them know I know who they are. I value their contribution to our organization. I come out of the sales side, the sales and marketing side. I can do everything possible to get you to buy a ticket. I know how to do that. I know how to buy media. I know how to do a promotion. I know how to sell a show. I know how to make a splash. I can write and send a press release. But if you get here and your tickets don't work and you can't figure out how to get them on the digital ticket system, and nobody here even bothers to ask you why you're struggling, that's what you remember. And you may not come back or not. So our frontline, part-time and full-time frontline are vital to our success. If we want to have any success in this business, in any business, back to your question, which was just about relationships. I just think a big part of that is people knowing they're valued, and that somebody sees what they do, sees them, and appreciates what people are doing when they're here.
Well, that's really good advice for anyone who's going to get into a managerial role, and it seems key to you that you know your people and they know you, and that you let them know they're appreciated, because frankly they make it happen, right?
100%. Mm-hmm.
Our special guest today, folks, is Kelly McGrath, the General Manager and Executive Director of the Xcel Energy Center. Before we move on any further, Kelly, can you please tell everyone how your website and your social handles, so they can find out, hey, when is the first Wild game, or when is the next concert coming, or what are all the concerts that are coming?
Yeah, so the Xcel Energy Center, a long name, but it's just xcelenergycenter.com is our website. No E in front of Xcel. We're named for the utility company here in Minnesota and the region, not the spreadsheets. So that's the biggest way that people get tripped up. So Xcel Energy Center has all of our latest events, including Wild games. On there, Tom, people can sign up for our newsletter. And that is where we'll send out a pre-sale for most events. That we do that via email newsletter that folks get, and then they get the pre-sale code. They can use that to buy tickets ahead of the general public on sale. And then our socials you can get to them all through the website, but you find us in all the usual places: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or whatever Twitter is called when we are going to air this episode to see what Elon has done next. And then we'll start to evolve and get into some of the new social. We especially are looking to launch a TikTok in the short term.
So all kinds of places that people can reach out, find out what events are happening and what's going on at the Xcel Energy Center. So Kelly, I want to move on to something that's pretty near and dear to me, and that's like, holy cow, I think I want this job. Director of Sales for the Minnesota Wild. I'll tell you, one of the happiest days of my wife's life every year is when the Stanley Cup Finals are done, because we have the males in our house have an illness, is what she believes. But holy cow, tell us all about being the Director of Sales for the Wild. You from
Crazy.
2000 to 2005. So tell us about what goes into a role like that. And what are you selling? General tickets? Are you selling the booths, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I came over originally in 2000 as the director of group sales. Specifically, we didn't have a group sales department. And you talk about relationships, Tom. That's one of my stories when people ask about if like a young person wants to do an informational interview. How I came about to be for the Wild. And it's so funny because now I think I was kind of clueless, right? Like people were so excited that pro hockey was back in Minnesota. The North Stars had left, and everyone was just so excited that this hockey team was coming. I was selling advertising for the Business Journal, and I got a phone call from one of my good friends, still one of my best friends, Kathy Stennis. And Kathy called and said, hey, the hockey team is going to start in St. Paul. And I got a call about being the group sales manager. Kathy was my boss at the Ordway. So it's kind of a convoluted story, but Kathy was my boss at the Ordway. She had an independent group sales business for a while and supported Broadway out of Toronto. Toronto's a huge Broadway market. The new vice president of sales for the Wild was from Toronto. So Steve Griggs, who's now president of the Tampa Bay Lightning, by the way, Steve Griggs called back to his contacts in Toronto and said, who knows somebody in St. Paul, Minneapolis that can start my group sales department? I need somebody quick. Called Kathy because of the connection. She wasn't interested. She's raising little kids. She calls me and I said, well, it's worth a cup of coffee. I'll talk to this guy and see what this opportunity is. So I met with Steve, had a really good conversation. He said, I need somebody who can hit the ground running. I said, Steve, I used to do it next door at the Ordway. I can set up a group sales department without even, I know what you need. I know the people we need to get in front of right away. And so it happened pretty quickly and kind of unexpectedly, but I moved from selling advertising into St. Paul and started working for the pro hockey team that barely had a name and jumped right in. I started in June of 2000, and then we opened the building that September and started hockey. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who your first sales was to from a group standpoint?
I don't. It's been a lot of years ago, but I know people were super, super excited to have back. It was an easy sell. Our early years were an easy sell. It was more managing the season ticket inventory. So in the sports world, season tickets are your bread and butter. You want as many season tickets as you can. Then you layer in group tickets, and then you need public tickets as well. So you just need people who can maybe afford or choose just one or two games a year. So we had kind of a pretty substantial season ticket base because it was the hot new product in town, and then a certain number of groups, and then single tickets on top of that. So you're selling to mainly a lot of corporate, some tour business coming in. We would try to do like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout to sprinkle that into a lot of youth hockey tickets. At that time, Tom, I don't know if you remember, but we used to sell $10 tickets on the upper level ends. That's how much a ticket was for a Wild game when we opened in 2000.
No, I don't remember. Because it's so, I'll say it's painful, but
it can be at times.
Come on.
It depends on where you sit. Yeah,
it's the Minnesota Wild. There is not a bad seat in the house, by the way.
Thank you. The building was very, very well built. It's we're 23 years old already, but it's certainly held up. In fact, when I was walking the building before our time together, our painters are paint in the building. We have two full-time painters on staff, and they paint nonstop, and it makes a difference. It keeps the building looking fresh, covers up, all the nicks that'll happen when carts are rolled through, when 18,000 people roll through, and chairs are hitting walls. Everything is regularly repaired and repainted so that we continue to look as clean and fresh as we can.
So when you're selling group tickets to the Minnesota Wild, for the Minnesota Wild, I should say, was this anywhere from, was there a minimum and is there a maximum of group tickets people can get?
I think at that time, the minimum was 12. I believe the Wild sell an eight ticket limit now for groups. There's usually a minimum. Sometimes there's a discount involved for the tickets. Sometimes there's not. It's just access, right, to get a group together that you might want to sit together. We've sold big blocks of tickets. There's some organizations that would maybe have like a sales meeting all day next door in the St. Paul River Center, the convention center that's adjacent on our complex. So a team would spend a whole day there in meetings, and then they'd all come over and come to the Wild game together. So that's maybe 200 people that would come and, have a 200 ticket buy. It varies. And then a lot of the sales now for the team, there's a lot of theme nights. It sounds like you follow our team pretty closely. You've seen them promoted. We might have, healthcare worker night, school, teacher appreciation night. There's usually a package involved. Military is a big one. Yep, absolutely. So just different ways of grouping people to get different people through the doors. And those are called super groups, where you're not necessarily finding that one group leader, as well as you're finding an organization where people have that common thread that they might all buy tickets to the same night.
Kelly, when you're in that role, and this is just me being so interested because I'm such a hockey fan, did you have access to GM, coaches, players, things like that in a role such as that? Or was that, hey, I work for the Xcel, that's the hockey team, they do their thing, we do our thing?
Yeah, when I worked primarily for the Wild in the early years of my career here, it's pretty separate. There's business operations and there's hockey operations. And it really depends, Tom, on who's at the lead of hockey operations at that time. So we've had different general managers through the years, some of who integrate more with the business operations side and some of who integrate less with the business operations side. Currently, Billy Guerin is our GM and president of hockey operations, excuse me. He's in, he gets it. Billy gets that his call in a season ticket holder who might be on the fence to renew. And Billy calls and says, you got to be here next year. You got to see this kid out of, name that random country or whatever it is. Like he gets it. His team gets that they need the stands full, and as part of what makes their success as well. He's extremely personable, kind of what you see is what you get kind of guy. So there is some of that access to the team. It just depends on the role. The team themselves, the players are pretty insulated from the business side. They're more worried about what's happening on the ice, but there's certainly different events. Like every year there's a big golf tournament that supports our foundation, the Minnesota Wild Foundation, and the whole team participates in the golf tournament. So if you purchase a foursome, you're going to have a player with you at that event. So they do a big Wild About Children every year where they're waiters. Like we do it on the floor of the arena, set up a real nice dinner. People are at tables and you might have Marcus Foligno as your bartender or coming around to top off your wine. So they're very active in those kind of things. And then they all have personal charities that they're tied to, that they use their notoriety to lend their name to different funds. Right now, we have a really good group of guys that are very, very active in the community.
Yeah, I think you must be just consider yourself blessed to be able to deal with Bill Guerin, because he seems like he just gets it, the whole package. So just as a fan, it's huge. So now we're up to 2005. We got to keep going here. So now you become director of sales and marketing at the Xcel Energy Center. So it's more than just Minnesota Wild now. Now your role is the whole Xcel Energy Center from a director of sales and marketing. Talk about that and what went into that role and what were you responsible for?
Yeah, so in that time frame, 2005, the arena started to host and bid on more national events. So things like the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, the USA Gymnastics Championships, NCAA Frozen Four, different events like that we wanted to partner with Visit St. Paul, the the Convention and Visitors Bureau of St. Paul, Visit St. Paul, to bring more national events into St. Paul. And no one was really in that linchpin role to make the connection to the arena, to an outside governing body like U.S. Figure Skating. So I made the transition in 2005 for more working really with the Wild predominantly and the family shows that had group sales. Think Disney on Ice, Stars on Ice, Rodeo, those kind of events. I transferred into more of a arena only role, though we're always all the Wild. Like we all are Wild employees. They're our bread and butter, if you will. And then there's some of us that are more predominantly on the arena and the arena events. But at the end of the day, we're all Wild employees. But when I made the switch, I was starting to work with, let's use U.S. Figure Skating, for example, when they were here in 2008, there's tickets that need to be scaled, priced, sold, sponsorship opportunities on a local level, community activation, public relations, what is the operations when they come in and take over the building. So we didn't really have anybody in that role to start to connect all those dots. So I moved into that role in 2005, really dedicated to arena sales, not just for the family shows, but for all of our events that come through the building. And I did that from 2005 to 2008. That was really my focus. And then in 2008, I assumed both marketing and the sales role. So then now working to market different shows, concerts, events, family shows that come through the building. And that was when that transition kind of took place.
So one of the big weeks that happens at the Xcel Energy Center is a Minnesota high school hockey tournament. What all goes into that? I'm assuming you don't plan it the week before. I'm assuming it's a year-round planning session for that because I think it must do pretty nicely that week for the Xcel Energy Center.
Yeah, our partnership with the Minnesota State High School League is very important to us. It's very important to the city of St. Paul because everybody comes and fills hotel rooms, right? And they're eating and drinking. So the ticket and the attending the event is part of that whole package that's great for St. Paul. So we actually host volleyball every fall, the volleyball tournament. And then we have girls hockey in late February. We have the wrestling tournament in March. And then we do the Granddaddy, the boys state high school hockey tournament. The one that slides in there is wrestling that people, if you don't have a wrestler in your life, you maybe don't know a lot about. Wrestling is a huge event for us. The building opens at like 6 a.m. They do wrestlebacks, they do wrestling. We have people in the building all day long from 6 till the last wrestler wrestles. And the beauty of that is you have kids that maybe they were the one weight class that made it from a really small town, but they made it all the way to state. The whole town comes. Everybody's in the stands cheering for that kid. But then they're staying overnight and they're going down to Tom Reed's and they're contributing to the economy in St. Paul. So we know we're more than the big building on the corner. We really are contributing to the city, and we take that really seriously, that responsibility. The boys high school hockey tournament, how would you even explain that to somebody who's not from Minnesota, right? So as people are listening to your podcast that might not be from Minnesota, there's nothing else like it. It's a 4-day tournament that has 4 games every day of competition, and we sell out. It's an 18,000 people are here for boys high school hockey. So I had a group of people come from the Chicago Blackhawks one year, probably like 10 years ago already, because they wanted to replicate what we were doing here for the boys tournament. And I said, well, you're welcome to come and I'll gladly tour you around. I don't know how to tell you how this happened. It's been going on forever. It's spring break in Minnesota. People take the week off and they're here. I went to Hill Murray for high school, which is a boys hockey powerhouse and girls hockey powerhouse, I might add, now since I've been there. And I see everybody, I see nothing but people I know here that week. It's like old home week. There is nothing like it. And we prep for it. People on our staff, our part-time staff, take their own personal vacation to work during the day to work the tournament because we're full. We have 18,000 people. I've worked concession stands during the high school tournament because it's all hands on deck. So I've literally, you might buy chicken fingers from me the next time you're at the high school tournament. You never know where the quote unquote front office is going to turn up at any given time. But it's definitely a favorite event for the city, a favorite event for the arena. It wraps up our busy March Madness time. It's our third tournament. So by that Saturday night, we don't want to see overtime. I mean, fans love it. Everybody loves a good overtime game, but we're done. And then if we hit double overtime, which it seems like it happens every year. I know it doesn't if I look at the record books, but it sure seems like it. And just makes for a little longer day because usually then we have to convert the building on the overnight because the Wild are probably playing the next day.
Wow. And that's the things we, as lay people, I went to the tournament, if I remember correctly, it was 17 consecutive years. I'm
wow.
a big fan. And, and we live up here, like we say, 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle, and 150 miles north of the Xcel Energy Center. A lot of small towns who are hockey cities end up making it there. And it's a joke up here because they say last person head to the Xcel, turn off the lights. I mean, the whole city goes, the whole schools, I don't know if they can officially close down, but there's nobody there.
It's just the best part about the whole tournament. A lot of those, and you know this from up in Duluth, the regional competition just to get to state, some of those games are epic. I mean, just legendary games as those kids who probably grew up together and have played against each other since they were mites and peewees and squirts and phantoms. And now they're going against each other to get that trip to St. Paul. Those games are unbelievable environment. And then they get here and they get to play on the same ice where the Minnesota Wild played. What's really fun now is the team being in existence since 2000, we have kids come into the tournament who've been Wild fans their whole lives, right? Like they grew up with the Wild and now they get to come and play on their team's ice. And, it took a while for us to get to that point when we were a new team, but it's fun. They get to walk by the Wild's locker room. They're on the same carpet where the team goes out to get to their bench. That's where those kids are walking. So it's certainly just a memory of a lifetime, for a lot of young people to make it to the ice. But then for me, my team, Hill Murray made it to the state tournament, the old Civic Center. That was the building before the arena was here. I think we were here 3 out of my 4 years when I was in. Some of my best memories ever were coming to the state tournament. It was just fun.
You went and watched it under clear boards.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. The old clear boards at the Civic Center. Yeah. I was thinking the seat colors, but that's the old mat.
Yep. A personal story from there is we were very blessed. My son played in the state tournament all 3 years of high school. And in one of the championship games he played in, they're getting in the locker room, getting ready, and they're in the locker room right across from the Wild. And the Wild players are displaced at that point. They had to go off-site to practice. So they were all coming in, getting their equipment. And I'm up in the stands as a parent, and I get a text from my son, and I'll paraphrase, it's something like, I can die now because Zach Parisi just told me to have a good game and gave me a head nod. And that's when Zach Parisi played for the Wild years and years ago. And then he went in the locker room to go get his gear and all that. That's experiences that these kids, these are their mentors. These are the people that they idolize. And these guys are coming in and actually interacting with them.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That was a big change for our organization, was when we built Trio Rink in downtown St. Paul. It's where the Wild's practice facility is now. That's where they practice, and they have a full locker room there. So that frees up a lot of time for the arena to actually book in other events, because we don't have to accommodate practice for the team every day. They have their own area. and the team loved it. Freezy at that time and his teammates probably were already in their full gear, getting in their cars to drive to another rink to practice. They used to literally come here to suit up, grab their skates and drive like in their gear over to another rink. And then Trio Rink was a great investment that Craig Leopold, our owner, made, and it's benefited the organization in many ways.
So let's talk about some other things like concerts. We're talking a lot about hockey, but let's go to concerts because not everyone's a hockey fan. Xcel Energy Center has concert after concert after concert. How does that all work?
Yeah, concerts is like number 2, if you will, after the Wild. Obviously, a lot of people have never been to a Wild game, but they've certainly been here for Thomas Rhett or the Eagles or the rodeo, the high school tournaments. We have a lot of diversity in program. How it works is it really comes down to dates primarily. So once the Wild schedule is set, we don't move a Wild game, right? Once it's announced. But let's say now we're already working, Brian Miller books our building, and Brian's already into next year and next season, and there's a preliminary schedule and holds, and then there's the annual events we know we're going to have every year, those high school tournaments, the NCHC Frozen Face-Off, the rodeo every year. All those things get slotted in. Now you're an agent, Tom, for a XYZ band and you want to play here. You're going to start to say, I kind of want to be there in April. What would my options be? Okay, well, here's some dates we're open. We can hold for you. And then, but this date, we can't get it for you. You're a second hold behind a Wild game, and you're likely not going to get it because that's probably going to hold firm. So it's kind of a big puzzle piece as an agent or a tour or promoter routes across the whole country, because you don't want to go from Minnesota to South Carolina back to California. They're trying to route, in a path that makes most sense, most efficient. So that's why if someone's in Chicago, they're usually coming here after. If they're here, they're going to Chicago because it all makes sense on the flow of the travel. So really it comes down to dates, trying to find a date that will work for us based on our overall schedule and get those in. We're a super competitive market. We have a similar building. The Target Center is in Minneapolis where the Timberwolves play. They're roughly 9 miles door to door from the Xcel Energy Center. So we are always looking for back to our conversation about relationships, making sure we have strong relationships with promoters, with agents, touring shows. And then once we get you here once, we want you back. So you're going to be treated really, really well in our building from start to finish.
You don't have to say any names, but are there any entertainers that you would prefer would go to some other venue?
Yeah, I'm not saying names. I'll tell you that. You can't, right? Because an agent has more than one act that they might rep, and maybe somebody just had a bad day. But
oh, you're so nice.
For the most part, when there's an act that's at this level where you're playing to 12, 13, 14, 15,000 people, I find they're usually the people that travel with them are top of the line. Like they're the best in their business. They've achieved it. They're supporting the Eagles. They're supporting Eric Clapton. They're supporting Bon Jovi, whoever it might be, Greta Van Fleet. So they're usually pretty pro. They say yes when they mean yes, no when they mean no. You know what you're working with, versus a band that's just on their way up. They're still figuring it out too, right? So they're like, I'll ask for everything. They might give it to us. And you're like, no, like, so you reach a certain level of pro in the touring business, and that seems to be who comes through our doors.
Kelly, let me brag on you and your work a little bit here for a moment. The Xcel Energy Center was named Arena of the Year 9 different times. You host 150 live events per year and 1.7 million guests per year. Those are some pretty darn big numbers. 2019, you personally were awarded the WISE Twin Cities Chapter Women of Inspiration Award. And in 2020, you won the Women of Influence Awards for Venues Now. Congratulations. That's pretty big stuff. That's a lot of hard work and a lot of years of working really hard to get to that. And then just not too awfully long ago is when you were promoted to the big dog, the general manager and executive director of the Xcel Energy Center. That's a pretty huge title. Congratulations and well earned.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind in the short time I've been in the role. I'm learning quite a bit. I know I've been with the organization, as we've been talking about, since 2000. So I know a lot of things peripherally or through osmosis, but now I have to actually pay attention to some meetings that before I could kind of half listen or fake my way through. But when someone's telling me something now, I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I actually have to know what that means, you know?
Was that in your budget?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you run a company. Yeah, I ask budget a lot. I ask, what do you want to do, is a question I ask people a lot, because I'm working with pros. I'm working with a great team of people. Our director level is folks who run their business unit extremely well. And my job is to just keep the road clear so they can keep doing that. And usually it's asking, what do you want to do? What would you do in this situation? And then talking it through together to say, yeah, that sounds super reasonable. Let's do that. I'll support that. Or just trying to throw in another option like, yeah, but what you don't know is this piece of that puzzle that I know, from talking to someone else, and we have to take that in consideration. Because I found a lot of times in my role when I was at the director level, and now that I'm in my general manager role, people assume, right? Without information, people assume and fill in that blank. So a lot of times what people were making decisions out of, they just didn't know, like, oh, well, I didn't know that affected so-and-so, or so I'm just trying to connect a lot of dots and really working on communication so that we're all on the same page and, moving forward together.
Perfect. And you know what? Next time you see Bill Guerin, tell him we have his back.
You got it.
We're all huge fans. So we're going to pivot one more time. Last time I promised that we pivot here. We're going to go personal on you, Kelly. Folks, okay. Our special guest is Kelly McGrath, the general manager and executive director of the Xcel Energy Center, world renowned. We call this our packed questions segment. And it's just some rapid fire questions. Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
I'm fortunate I've traveled quite a bit. My husband and I try to take a big trip every year. I would say favorite trip that I mentally take myself back to when I need to just calm down in my head is Santorini, Greece, and just overlook the caldera there and watch the sun come up.
I've heard that from more than one person. Never been there personally, but I've heard that.
You have to go.
Favorite movie?
My favorite movie as an adult, I'd say Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies. As a kid, I loved The Parent Trap with Haley Mills, the original Parent Trap, where she played twins.
Our last podcast, when I asked that same question, it was Shawshank Redemption as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of people's, I think. Good movie.
And okay, I'm going to ask this one, but you don't have to answer it. Favorite concert at the Xcel Energy Center?
I've been here so long. I always think I have favorites that are not necessarily for the show, but just one that I maybe wouldn't have bought a ticket to that I was pleasantly surprised by. I thought Green Day was amazing live. I wasn't a Green Day fan, but when they came on the stage, unbelievable. Like, they are rock stars, and I was all in. Green Day was awesome. I love Bruce Springsteen, so any of the times he's played here is always my favorite. Another one that I was surprised by, in a funny kind of come full circle story, I love Bob Seger, one of my favorites, and he played 2 shows. He played here and he played in Fargo with Kid Rock. They're both from Detroit. So Detroit natives, they just did two shows. We happened to get one of them. And the fun thing about it was anytime we were downstairs asking, like, we have a gift for you. As you guys know, we do gifts. Like, we have a gift for you. We have a jersey presentation. Every time we asked the Kid Rock camp, they always deferred to Bob Seger. He had so much respect for Seger as his hero that Kid Rock would always say, if Seger's doing it, we'll do it. If Seger did it, we'll do it. Like, it didn't matter what we asked. If Seger did it, Kid Rock did it. And I just loved the respect that he had for another, his fellow Detroit guy. Well, then the other thing we do at shows is we put big, large format signs downstairs that say, welcome to St. Paul. And they usually have the tour artists on there, the artwork. Well, my husband and I, Wayne Peterson, who works for the Wild, we were in Nashville over the summer, and we were honky tonk hopping, and we ended up in the Kid Rock honky tonk. And I'm walking down, and I see our large format sign, Bob Seger, Kid Rock, welcome to St. Paul. So I just scream in the bar, and of course everyone's like, "Why is that?
What's wrong with that lady?"
It's a sign. Like, I was so excited, had to get my picture, but couldn't believe it. We just do it as a matter of welcome so that they know where they are, because they're on the road, right? So we want them to remember they're in St. Paul when they hit the stage and say hello to the crowd is part of the reason we do it. But to see that show, and it had such a good memory for me on the wall of the bar in Nashville, was really fun.
That's awesome. And my last question, somebody who's become so successful like you have and worked your way up to the position you're in, what's the best piece of life advice that you've ever received?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about my growing up, Tom, and I coming from the household I did. One of the things we live by, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I know I'm very blessed with opportunities I've had, educational opportunities I've had, travel the world, all the different things that come with a blessed life that I view as a blessed life. And I take that very seriously, and I feel like I need to do something with that. And so for me, it's really been giving back and treating everyone as if they're worthy of the dignity of what they're worthy of. I'm not articulating that very well, other than I've been given a lot, and I respect that everybody has their gifts and their talents, and we need them all. And I'm going to find out what somebody's is and try to bring out the best in them, because that's how we all succeed. I do think that's been a part of my success. If something needs done, I'm the first one to roll up my sleeves and do it. I'm not going to ask people to do things I haven't been willing to do myself through my career. And it goes back to that whole, people want to be seen and known and acknowledged. And I think that's kind of been my basic life philosophy.
That was great advice. And folks, our special guest today is Kelly McGrath, General Manager and Executive Director of the Xcel Energy Center. Kelly, thanks for taking all the time to spend with us today. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. I've enjoyed it.
And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors.